movie.
Let's talk Guardians of the Galaxy, shall we? I just got back from seeing the Marvel Studios adaptation of the space adventure comic, directed by James Gunn. This was a surprise in the sense that I didn't expect it to come off as well as it did, being that this was a comic book movie based upon a comic book that is a C-grade comic book at best. I mean, I grew up with comic books. I was a collector of comics in my teenage years. And even I had barely heard of the Guardians of the Galaxy. And even though they've been around for a few decades, it's not that well-known a property. So it's surprising that Marvel gave it a go. I mean, this is not a cheap movie. I think the budget was around $175 million for this movie. So if this didn't do well, this could have been the last sort of chance movie that you would have seen. You wouldn't see a Doctor Strange movie coming out. You certainly probably would not have gotten an Ant-Man movie in production, but I think they trusted it along the way to the point where they're like, okay, if we can do Guardians of the Galaxy as a Marvel film, we can do almost any property save for Devil Dinosaur. So this was a very, very entertaining movie and a very well-made movie. There was a lot of good action. There was a few major set pieces, and it was nice in that you could tell what was going on geographically. The action was well shot. That's my main pet peeve about action, is not only this shaky cam bullshit, which thankfully this movie didn't have, but when you cannot tell where the characters are in relation to each other. And this movie did a great job of doing that, especially in the mild spoilers, the jail scene break scene, which was a very, very good scene for a number of reasons. The characters themselves are very entertaining, and this was very, very well cast. Chris Pratt is now like an instant movie superstar based upon his role as Quill, Star-Lord. This was a comedic actor. He came from Parks and Recreation on TV. So this is just another sort of great Marvel casting job. Marvel really has not gone wrong in casting these films by and large. And so you have him, you have Bradley Cooper, who did the voice acting for Rocket Raccoon, who was a lot more depth to the Rocket character than you would expect. You think he'd just be a cute, colorful character, which he is, but there's actually some depth to his personality and a slight backstory. You have Zoe Saldana as Gamora, and then you have Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista, who did a very, very good job as Drax the Destroyer. I know he comes from a wrestling background, but hey, wrestling is acting. And that's what he's doing here. And he did a very commendable job. And of course, the physicality part you would think he'd have no issue with, because he was a professional wrestler and still is part-time. And so he did a great job. So the chemistry between the characters was top-notch. A lot of the dialogue, there was a lot of room for not only the characters to get used to each other, but also, I guess, to have fun with each other at the same time. You have 5 characters if you count Groot, who was voiced by Vin Diesel. So they start off, not to give too much away, I'll do a little spoiler part later, but they start off as adversaries by and large, for the most part. And then they gradually learn to trust each other, which has happened in other movies before, but it's the interaction that's the main highlight of this film. And there are a lot of jokes. This is probably the funniest, if not the funniest, Marvel Studios film to date. It could be the funniest superhero / comic book movie of all time. There are genuine belly laughs to be had in this movie every 5 or so minutes, it seems. And again, the humor, it's important that in movies that the humor is based upon the characters and their personality and the dialogue, and that's what happens here. There's nothing forced, none of the humor is forced, it all comes out naturally, it comes out through what you'd expect from the characters' actions and their strange interactions with each other, since they have all these contrasting personality quirks that they have to deal with. There's a lot of heart to this film. If there's one thing that Marvel films does well, the Marvel Studios films, I should say, is that there is an emotional underpinning to the entire framework of the film. And even though there is a lot of action and there's a lot of humor, each character has their chance for an emotional sort of outreach to the audience to get you on their side. Even Rocket the Raccoon, even Groot to an extent. There's an emotional underpinning. The backstories of the characters aren't fleshed out to the extent that I think they would have time to do. The only one that's really fleshed out entirely is Star-Lord, Quill's character. And at the beginning of the movie, not to give too much away, mild spoilers, you'll be within near tears within the first 3 minutes of the film as you get going. Much to Marvel's credit, they know how to basically get the audience behind the characters. And that's what's most important in movies like this, is that it's not just a comic book movie. It's based upon characters, and you have to respect those characters in some respects in order to get the audience behind them. And then when the action happens, you're more emotionally invested in the characters. So to talk more about the action, there's a couple of, I guess, space combat dogfighting scenes. They're done pretty well. They're not done spectacularly. The hand-to-hand combat, I would think, is more the movie's strong suit when it comes to the action. The side characters are all cast extremely well. I mean, you have Benicio del Toro as the Collector. You have Michael Rooker in the film. You have Glenn Close in a smaller role. You have John C. Reilly. All incredibly cast. I mean, again, to Marvel's credit, they get these big-time actors who can carry their own films, and just for small supporting roles. And of course, this is a spoiler. This is going to be a spoiler now, right here. You get to see the first really shot and speech of Thanos, who's going to be portrayed by Josh Brolin. And yeah, it gives you mild chills, because this is the ultimate sort of badass in the Marvel Universe, and you get to see him for about a minute. So that's good. If there's anything that wasn't good about the film, like I said, the backstories of the characters could have been fleshed out a little bit more, but I understand they want to get the movie going. And even though it runs at about 2 hours, it feels like it's much shorter, because the pacing of the film is very, very quick. It goes from one sort of set piece to the next, get the characters introduced, get them going, get them on their mission. There's not really a lot of lulls in the action. And when there are sort of quiet moments, again, they're all funny because of the interaction between the characters. And you want to see these characters again, because they are very entertaining. I'm glad that they did not give away many lines of Rocket Raccoon, because Bradley Cooper, who did voice him, did a great job. Voiced him sort of as this like tough New York accent he had. Very entertaining character. It wasn't just a gimmick. It was a fleshed out character, albeit an animated, animated raccoon. And they had a lot of fun with that premise too. This character is very ornery and doesn't like being called a pet or even a raccoon, which even says in the movie, what's a raccoon? Because they're far across the galaxy, there are no raccoons. So I recommend seeing this. Marvel Studios is firing on all cylinders right now. Captain America Winter Soldier was an excellent, excellent film. This is also an excellent film. I'm not going to say whether or not it's better or worse. They are two entirely different films. One was sort of a political thriller, and this is a space action comedy. And this could be a comedy first and action second, because there is, again, so many laughs to be had. This is a very well written script. It's a tight script. It's not perfect, but it's as best you can expect for, like, again, a C-grade comic book movie. And I applaud Marvel for giving a shot to a comic book that really no one heard of to begin with. So we have Ant-Man next year. We have Avengers 2 next year, and then supposedly Doctor Strange is a couple years away. Doctor Strange is not a C grade, he's more of a B grade comic book, but again, that's important, that from Guardians of the Galaxy, this movie's going to make a ton of money. I was in the theater at 1 in the afternoon, and it was like 95% full. Alright, I had to reshoot this real quick. I almost forgot to tell everyone this. This is an extremely fun movie. And not just fun because there's a lot of comedy and humor and a lot of nice action that the audience loves. It's just a fun movie. It's a fun atmosphere. Case in point, the soundtrack, an eclectic mix of 70s and 80s R&B hits and rock hits. Everything from Cherry Bomb by the Runaways to the Jackson 5 to, if you like, Pina Coladas. I mean, this is a fun experience overall. And even that, there's a reasoning behind that, an emotional undertone and underpinning even to the strange soundtrack. I'm not going to give it away, but Star-Lord has a cassette mixtape that he plays in his Sony Walkman. So again, fun times here. Cut back to Pat sweating his ass off again. Anyway, that's my recommendation. Go see it. It's probably top, Captain America Winter Soldier is a top 5 probably superhero movie of all time. This could be in the top 5 of all time as well if you count it as a superhero film, which I guess it technically is. More of a comic book movie. It's definitely top 10 comic book movie, maybe top 5. Maybe it'll make your top 5. Yep. So there's my review. James Gunn did a great job balancing the character dialogue and with the action and the set pieces. All well done. Lots of humor. There's a good amount of heart in this movie too, which again, the emotional underpinning. So go out and see it. I give it 3.5 out of 4 raccoons. Fluffy, furry, violent raccoons. All right. I'm sweating in here. I'm going to grab a fish taco or two with Frank, have a beer. Take care.